So for the final titles of the Blenderman project, I sort of pushed the approach that I was using before a little bit further, and I wanted to show you why I chose to do it this way and the options that you have if you want to do something a little bit more dynamic than the other titles, as we can see here. Now, I'm just going to select one of these letters really quickly and show you what's going on in the scene. I actually grabbed the camera from the final shot and used it and linked everything to the camera so I could have something sort of similar moving around. Now, in the end, if I look at this, it wasn't really necessary to have an animated camera. Everything could have just stayed still, but it's how I built the project from scratch, and I didn't really want to change it afterwards. Plus, I wanted to show you as well, if you were to integrate these directly into your scene, you could do it this way with all your models and everything behind them as well, if you want to do one quick big render of everything. So as you can see, they're moving in, and there was a little bit of work involved setting this up, but I'm going to show you exactly why I did this and how I did this. So first of all, everything is linked to the camera, but we're going to ignore that for now. I just want to show you how the text is linked to different parts. So I moved to the end of the project here, and you can see the Blenderman titles. I have this little control object. It's just an empty box, empty. But if I move this around, you can see everything is linked to that. So that way I have all of my letters and everything linked to one object, so I can easily move it around. If I want to push it back into Y space and have it a little further or closer from the camera, I can do that very quickly. Now, to that object itself, sorry about that, is actually we have a whole bunch of other empties linked to it as well. Now these are non-selectable, so let me turn on selectable here for a second, and these control individual letters. Now, the reason I have these controlling individual letters is something I'll show you in just a second, but I've separated all of these out, and all of these are separated meshes, and if I open up the first control one here, so that would be the first empty over here, you can see we have the inside B and the outside B both linked to this control. Now, the reason I did this is I wanted to adjust the spacing of the letters a little bit, because the default spacing, if I was just using it as a text object, didn't really sit with me well. Yeah, I didn't like it. There were, like, for example, the L was spaced a little weird, and the spacing between the letters wasn't all that good. So I wanted to adjust that, and it also gives me the option of animating these and animating them separately. Now, because I wanted a smooth camera movement, and I wanted these letters towards the end of the project to move outwards. So if we go in here, you'll see they actually move out just a little bit. I don't know how visible that is, but maybe if we start from here, as you can see, the letters are actually closer to each other here than they are here. It's ever so subtle. I could have exaggerated this a little bit more, but this is what the end result ended up looking like, so it's no big deal. But I can do this because I have these linked together. Now, why would I link all of these together? Well, it's actually quite easy. This way I can animate them from frame 0 to the last frame, or from the first frame to the last frame. Just animate them linearly moving out towards each other, and I can still animate the letters themselves separately, and I don't have to start messing with keyframes and other things, because trying to get something to fly in the way it does, having letters move in like this and animate outwards as well, as in change the spacing between them, isn't easy to do with just one object and a bunch of keyframes. It'll require you a lot of work in the graph editor to get it just right, and adjusting things afterwards if you need to change something becomes not the easiest thing to do if you're messing with a lot of keyframes. So what I like to do is separate all of the different movements out that I want for the letters, and then basically use helpers for one set of movements. I've animated the letters themselves from the start here, sort of just behind the camera's view, and I've rotated them completely randomly. I just hit the R key twice for trackball rotation and just rotated them a little bit to where I wanted to rotate them. Then hit I for location and rotation keyframes very quickly, very easily. Obviously after I'd keyframe them in their final position. So that way we have the letters themselves, and I'll actually grab the graph editor over here. So what you can see is the letters themselves, they have a bunch of location and rotation keyframes. So all they're really doing when they're animated is moving from this really weird rotated position back into their original position. And that's it. Now, if I select the keyframes for the for the helpers here, I don't know if this will be very visible, but basically they're moving ever so slightly on the x-axis, and they're moving ever so slightly out. So that allows me to have a really smooth transition between all of these different movements that are going on without having to mess with keyframes a lot. Now I like doing that mainly because I'm not the best graph editor master, and I like to separate all of these things out because it makes it a lot easier to deal with. That being said, it gives you a lot of sort of linking and a lot of objects, but once you get used to this stuff, you can make your life a lot easier by just separating out all the different animations you want to do to the text, and that way giving you a really cool, nice end result. So as you can see, they come in really nicely. I'm able to ease in the movement of the text sort of forming together, and in the meantime, all of these helpers are sort of pushing it out and spacing them out ever so slightly, and it works very well.